Good morning. Pug on the Mac Hike Auto Group text line. We were talking about Tug McGraw earlier, and I see Pug jump up. Pug. Say it. How do you say it? Pug. And where are people from that say it like that?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, you pick a place. I'm good with it.
No, there's one in particular though, and it's not Pisgah. Really, I don't know why I automatically want to go to Pisgah. Tug. That's a good name though.
Well, I said Pug.
I know Pug.
But so is Tug McGraw.
It's just such a, other than the backstory, it's a great name.
Okay. I thought you were going to say Pearl.
That's it. It's Pearl. I was looking for it. I couldn't find it.
Oh.
Yeah, I've been giving Pearl a little slack lately. They got a lot going on over there, man.
Okay.
A lot of good things going on.
Absolutely.
Good folks out there in Ray County.
Man. Now, how do you say it?
Oh, that's Purrr. 3 R's and an L. It's Pearl.
Okay.
That's what Pug. There's a Pug and a Tug from Pearl. There's
no question.
Got to be one.
What I know somebody there by that name owns a body shop, without a doubt. There's no question. Pug says, outside of gambling, how useless are bowls now? Well, they are useless. I think it's awesome for the players that want to go and get 4 or 5 nights somewhere cool and all of that. We forget that not everybody's making a fortune. We only look at the big headlines. A lot of them are wrong on what players are receiving as far as dollars.
Right.
I think we forget still that you have plenty of players on the rosters that, while making good money without question for college, aren't making a fortune, but still flying somewhere, staying somewhere for 4 nights, doing whatever that town has to offer, everything paid for, wonderful food. Some of these places have great sites, and you catch an NBA or NFL game depending on where you go and all of that. We do have an SEC team this year in the Las Vegas Bowl. But I don't know what to tell you on that. I don't know where bowls are going. I don't know how they will. Although I'll say this, TV streaming wants live content. All the shows and the 700 channels, most of it's not good. And so people want to watch live sports. And I think even if you just pull up 1.8 million or 2.2 million or 2.4 million on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night, or whatever number that is, I wonder if that's still good enough. Plus, what ESPN's doing, and y'all already know this, is they're bundling all of this, and it's eating up programming.
Right.
So you're talking about a 4-hour live party, and I know some of the games are not good, but you stumble on some games that are. And then you got as you said, the sports gambling component where you've got a segment of, I guess, men and women that are going to put a little cheddar on the games and have some fun with it.
That could drive it alone, right?
I think the bundle, you go and get a title sponsor for all of it, and then you get some sponsorships under that. But I also don't know how much longer some of the companies that actually sponsor the bowl, like it's called the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl or the Autos. I don't know how much longer they'll do it.
Right.
This is the Wasabi Fenway Bowl.
What?
For example, Saturday, December 28th, UConn versus North Carolina in Boston. God, that weather could be miserable. So I don't know. I don't know how it looks. I think they're going to expand the playoff to 14 or 16 teams. Ole Miss wishes they had it not this past year, but last year, 10-2, they're in. Right. This year they're in on an expanded playoff. This coming year, they may be in the 12 team or we'll see. I mean, their road games are manageable. I mean, at Georgia, at Oklahoma. Oklahoma has nowhere to go but up on offense. At Kentucky, if they landed Malik Murphy from Duke, maybe they'll be competitive. And then at Mississippi State, and I don't know what to tell you about that roster. I mean, I don't. They can go nowhere but up too, though. Like I said about Oklahoma's offense.
Right.
I mean, that was the worst Mississippi State team in 35 years. Both, a combo of things. Right. But maybe because you'll have some continuity for the first time since Leach coached back-to-back seasons.
Is it continuity? I mean, with the coaching staff, sure.
Oh yeah, rosters will never have continuity.
That's dead, right?
Yeah, that's over.
What do you think about having one quarterback on the depth chart at the moment? Well, I mean,
you got Blake Shapen, and you have Kamario Taylor coming. I guess in the next 2 weeks he'll enroll, and then you have
a walk on, I believe.
Well, the Luke Cromenhoek, from Florida State.
Right.
Here's what Luganville told me. Really good young player that was put in an impossible position. He said he showed a lot of poise and toughness while getting his ass kicked.
Yeah. Well, I mean, impossible position. So that's what DJ Uiagalelei. He decided to take a pay cut.
Opt to the draft. Enter the draft. I don't know where that's going to lead.
Undrafted free agent.
To answer your question, I don't have an answer on bowl games. We're going to expand the college football playoff, and from there, I don't know.
I mean, when those large.
I mean, they have been going, toward the irrelevant, other than the playoff for a while. But then when you went to now that we got these games Friday and Saturday, but I think it's fun as background music to put them on during the holidays.
Sure. And
some of you want to put $20, $30, $40. Some of you do $200, $300, $400, whatever you want to do. But some of you like to go to in Pearl River Resort inside the Golden Moon to the Timeout Sports Lounge and bet $20 on 4 or 5 bowl games and make them more interesting. That does make them more interesting.
No doubt.
The total, taking a team, and so on. So there we go. Mike Detillier coming up next. Y'all are asking me about the food at Merrill, which is an awesome place in New Orleans. It's Emerald's daughter's place. I'll tell you this, the house-made meatballs, Korean fried chicken wings, and the crispy boudin balls as appetizers were all unbelievable. They also have deviled eggs, which are super, super good too. Mike D, straight out of New Orleans, coming up next. LSU on the warpath in the transfer portal. Oh, man. All right, good morning. Welcome in. Out of Bounds. I'm your host, Bo Bounds, 105.9 The Zone ESPN. If you need a video board for your school, university, business, hospital, you want to call Sound and Communications. SoundCommAV.com. Your next video board. Video wall. Or they can do video boards too. But definitely SoundCommAV.com. Your next video wall for your lobby, your conference room, to kind of show what you're doing. Hospital lobby, law firm, business, school, or university. It's powered by Sound and Communications. SoundCommAV.com. We want to welcome in Mike Detillier, WWL Radio TV New Orleans. Mike D joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. All right, Mike D. So some good news for LSU fans. Garrett Nussmeier will remain at LSU and not go to the draft. Plus, LSU lands Michael Van Buren for Mississippi State. And, of course, some other players have joined the LSU team from Virginia Tech and Florida and so on. So it looks like after a rough year for Brian Kelly, things are trending well the last week or so for LSU, right?
Yeah, it's about time. You've had some difficult moments there, but yeah, I think it was important that Garrett come back for another year for his, certainly for LSU's success, to have him come back. Now you got to rebuild your offensive line. I think that's the key area there for them, because you're going to lose Emory Jones. You're going to lose Will Campbell, Dellinger, Miles Fraser. All those guys are gone. So you're going to have 4 new starters up front. And that's going to be the key down the stretch. They will get a couple of good edge rushers and a couple of corners. So that should help them out. But now, the emphasis is certainly going to have to be on rebuilding your offensive line. They got some young guys, but virtually no experience there. So that's going to be the key for Kelly over the next week or so.
So Brian Kelly going into year 4. Is that right, Mike D? Year 4 for Brian Kelly?
Yeah, going into year 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, you got Nussmeier coming back. You got Van Buren as a hell of a backup. He's got a lot of talent. And then you mentioned, though, it's line of scrimmage, baby. That's how you're going to win in this league. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about Brian Kelly and maybe his seat getting warm. And you said, yeah, his seat may be getting warm, but they owe him a fortune on his contract. He's not going anywhere anytime soon. However, on the 2025 season, he kind of said it was playoff or bust. Is that where you are with this program in year 4? With 5 with Brian Kelly, year 4? Yeah.
Well, he said that year 3 would be the year. He's pointed out where he's been in other places that the 3rd year is when they made that run, and it didn't happen this year. So maybe he's pointing at year 4, and he sort of kind of stuck it back at some of the reporters that I'm keeping receipts for next year, and I'll see y'all in the playoffs.
Ooh.
He is setting himself up again with this, getting there. And I get it, and I think you got to dream it before it happens. But he understands the pressure that's involved in coaching at LSU. They're not worried about no 8-win season or 9-win season. Right now, it's about all about getting to the playoffs.
Okay, and look, he's a good coach. Do you believe in him? Do you believe that he can retool this roster through high school recruiting and the transfer portal, and with Nussmeier coming back? I mean, he hadn't played that much football, Mike D, but he's a talented young man. There were other guys in the league that had played a lot more, in Carson Beck and Milroe and even Quinn and Dart and hell, Brady Cook. I mean, I guess I could go on and on. But that's huge for Nussmeier to come back after playing all year. LSU could put themselves in a good position. Now you got road games at Ole Miss, at Bama, at Oklahoma. You had a great home schedule. So we'll see how that looks. Do you believe that they can do this and finish in the top 12, Mike D?
That opening schedule in September is difficult. You start on the road against Clemson, and then what you just brought up. So he's gotten off the bad starts here. Has not been able to get out of the gate well. Do I think Brian Kelly's a good coach? Yeah, I think he's a very good coach. But he was hard-headed about embracing the NIL era. He said after year one, we're not going to be involved in all this transfer stuff, that we're going to build this team through high school recruits. Come on. There's a reality check for him that wasn't going to happen. You can't do it like that in this world today. You're just not going to be able to. You're going to have to be able to juggle the high school recruiting and also being able to get transfers. But he was hesitant, very hesitant, to get involved with that. And I said at that time, I don't understand what he doesn't understand, that he's not going to be able to just build through high school recruits. The world changed, and he's got to change too. And I think it set back his team at least a year when he didn't embrace it. And now he's fully embracing it. It was the guy that just a couple years ago, we are not going to get involved with all this transfer stuff, and we're not going to pay you to come here. Okay, come on. You got to be real somewhere along the lines. He said that last year when he lost two defensive linemen, one to Miami and one to Oklahoma, that he wasn't going to be involved with that. Then at his last press conference, I've embraced it. We're going to get a lot of help through the transfer portal. He just again, the reality check is this: who around him was telling him that? Even if you believe to a certain extent, don't you have people around you that would tell you, "Hey, coach, we got to be able to change. We're gonna have to go after these players in the transfer portal." So, listen, head coaches do get surrounded by people that don't tell them anything negative.
Right. That's right.
And that's in other worlds too now.
Sure.
That's in business worlds too. So I think he's finally embraced it, but I did think he was very slow in embracing what has happened in college football across the board.
Well, he hired Austin Thomas Austin went back to LSU, and he was on Kiffin's staff, and he was the ringleader with Kiffin on the transfer portal. And as you mentioned, they were on the cutting edge. And I think hiring Austin Thomas away from Lane Kiffin and getting him in the mix is when he realized, Mike D, what you're talking about. The two cycles before, the last two, he didn't get into it. And now all of a sudden they're number one. Now, whether y'all stay number one or not doesn't matter. You're going to add some players. You're adding big time names. And so I think the hiring Austin Thomas from Kiffin as the general manager was a sign that Kelly was like, oh, blank, I better get into this. Do you agree, Mike D?
I agree. I said it last night. I thought behind the scenes hiring Austin Thomas back, because Austin had been here when Coach O was here.
Right.
And he was part of that recruiting class that won in that 2019 national championship. So I thought that was critical to bring Austin back and to pull him back into the real world of college athletics today. And I think behind the scenes, with all the talk about him changing, somebody had to be the catalyst to that change. It was Austin Thomas. I agree with you wholeheartedly. We talked about it last night on Sports Talk, that Austin is a major hire here. Now, how these guys turn out is the second part of it. You can recruit them, and look, last year for Ole Miss, I thought defensively that was the best Ole Miss defensive team I had seen in years. Sometimes offensively, it didn't quite gel. They didn't have the rushing attack. And when you lose a star back like what they did to Ohio State and Judkins, you understand. But I think it gives you the best shot to win. And I think Austin has played a big part of that for LSU.
I can't wait to see the number as far as how many players Kelly and the staff bring in. But again, as Mike D and I are discussing, LSU hired Austin Thomas back as their general manager, and they hired him away from Lane Train and Ole Miss. And he and Lane had done a great job the last couple of years in the portal, and now LSU is getting in big. Plus, big news, Garrett Nussmeier coming back, and they convinced Michael Van Buren to come down there and maybe play a role in the red zone, but sit and see how that goes. So got a little more depth down in LSU. Year 4, Brian Kelly's got to do some things. As Mike D said, 8-9 wins, they're not interested. They want to be in the college football playoff. As far as this weekend, Mike D, when you look at Tennessee and what they have up front on the defensive side of the Tennessee Vols going to Ohio State, and what they have up front, I know Nico has been up and down, but goodness, Ohio State's been up and down. They travel, Tennessee travels to Ohio State this weekend. Who do you like in that game and why?
I think Tennessee's got more than a fighting chance here. It all boils down to how well Nico plays. You look front seven-wise, Tennessee is really good defensively. Secondary-wise, maybe they're not as good as you'd like them to be, but Ohio State's passing attack is not great to begin with. Offensively, they're going to try to run the football. You know that's just how it is with them. But it all boils down to Nico being able to piece together a big game here. The pressure's all on Ohio State. When Will Howard came to Manning Passing Academy, the first thing that came out of his mouth when I interviewed him was, "This is national championship or bust for us."
Ooh.
I was shocked he told me that in that manner.
Wow.
And I think there's some pressure that goes along with that, Bo. And you kind of putting pressure on yourself. And look how it ended with them. To lose to, kind of an average Michigan team, and you got beat up in that game.
Yeah.
You were erratic all year long. Some games you played really well, other games not. Tennessee has got a really pretty chance here to pull off the upset. They really, really do, but it's going to take that big effort from Nico in this moment in time for him, for them to win this game. Ohio State's really good on defense. We've seen it all year long, how well they can play defensively. Again, every once in a while they flash this
True.
offensive firepower, but it's not consistent at all. And it's something that has stuck in my mind since the day he told me this. But this is back national championship year. Nick Saban at LSU playing Oklahoma. We had Barry Switzer come do some pregame for us on WWL. He did 2 segments. And he made that comment that the team that ends the season never shows back up again. In a couple weeks, either you better or you worse. Now, that was not the NIL era, transfer portal era. He was talking more about coachings looking for other jobs, players looking toward maybe coming out early for the NFL draft, that sort of thing. But it applies more today than it even did when he said it, that the team that ends that season, you never see them again.
Wow.
Either you get better or you get worse. You don't stay the same. And I'm intrigued with how that's going to apply to Ohio State and how it ended for them. And can they kind of jump that emotional ditch? And Ryan Day has won a ton of games. But in some of the big games, his teams haven't played well. And now, this new format, how it gets handled, all the pressure is on Ohio State.
Heck yeah, it is.
All of it. And so now Josh Heupel, he can kind of play with house money at this stage. He really can. But it's going to boil down to, can Nico, turn the engine over on the car? Because without him playing big, they got no shot against the Buckeyes.
Does Clemson have a shot at Texas, Mike D?
I think Texas bounce back and they win. Clemson, they're also a very erratic team.
I just don't trust Klubnik. I just don't, Mike D.
I don't trust him either. My thing is, eventually, if this gets off to a slow start with Quinn, I think you're going to have to pull the plug. And you're going to have to go with Arch. I think somewhere down the line, that's going to have to happen. And so I like Texas. I just think that they're the more talented team. And defensively, they played really well this year. I think that's been the untold story of how well they've played on the defensive side of football. To a certain extent, I think they've underachieved on offense.
I agree. I thought Ole Miss did. I thought Bama did, and Texas, and even Georgia with Carson. That was the deal. Defense won the day. I like where you're going, though, as far as Texas up front. And that defensive coordinator's special. Indiana at Notre Dame. You going Fighting Irish or an upset?
Yeah, I like Notre Dame here. I like what I've seen with Marcus Freeman and what he's been able to build there. And they're real physical up front. They've got some big playability. Their secondary is very good. And I think overall, it's been a kind of a Cinderella year for Indiana. But I think it comes to an end. And I think Notre Dame wins, and I think they'll win comfortably against Indiana.
We're visiting with Mike Detillier, WWL Radio TV New Orleans. He joins us on the Out of Bounds show, Saints, LSU, NFL, college football. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Mike, you and I have had this discussion, and so has everybody else in college football, about James Franklin not being able to beat anybody really good. Can you imagine if SMU goes up there and beats Penn State this weekend?
Then I do TV every Tuesday with Bobby Hebert and Rich Marty. Rich is graduated from Penn State. He's had two sons play for Penn State. I told him if they lose to SMU, he'll never show back up doing another TV show. And so, he's also, man, he's had it for Franklin, that he's got to win these big games. And I think he finally wins one, and he beats SMU. Man, you look at Penn State, if they can get out of this and beat SMU, then they play Boise State next. They may have a path to get, to where they want to go to easier than maybe anybody else. But, again, SMU has shown, man, they play with a lot of heart, a lot of grit. But Penn State has much more talent than SMU at this stage of the game.
Sure.
And I think they have more talent than Boise State at this stage. So I think finally Franklin wins a big game and he beats SMU and he moves on. And it wouldn't shock me that they do the exact same thing to Boise State, and they position themselves to make that run.
We'll leave it there. Mike Detillier on the Out of Bounds show. We have plenty of time to talk Saints and off season and goodness gracious, what direction Loomis and the crew are going to go with that roster. Mike D on the Out of Bounds show and the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Brian Kelly has now embraced the transfer portal and NIL. He hired Austin Thomas 11 months ago from Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss for Austin to come back to LSU. And they are all in on the portal and NIL because it is a sense of urgency. Even with all the money Kelly is owed, it's a sense of urgency down in Baton Rouge. Thanks, Mike D. Appreciate you, buddy.
Thank you, Bo.
And Merry Christmas to Mike Detillier, too. I don't even know what our schedule is next week. I was just thinking about that. But is today Tuesday? Yeah. All right. So we'll have to see how that looks next week. We are the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Good morning. Welcome in. And the show is brought to you by Lincoln Road Package Store, wine and spirit store in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Jamie Ferris is he's the barrel. Speaking of transfer portal, Jamie Ferris in Hattiesburg is the barrel pick king. So if a lot of you go down 49, up and back and over and through and so on, you want to go to Lincoln Road and check out all the barrel picks that Jamie Ferris and his team have. They do a great job. They got into the barrel pick game early, and it's a great selection for gifts for you to add to your bar to sip on some really high quality premium juice. Lincoln Road Package Store, Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Jamie Ferris. Stop by there when you're going to the coast or coming back or traveling or going to see people or working. That is for sure. We are the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. Bo Bounds, Jackson Meadows with you. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app and thezone1059.com. Don't forget that all of our shows are uploaded on Apple Podcast or Spotify. Search Out of Bounds with Bo Bounds. Michael Van Buren to LSU. Jackson Arnold to Auburn from Oklahoma. Blake Shapen is back at Mississippi State. And we'll see what happens with Luke Cromenhawk from Florida State. Luke Cromenhawk. I've been saying the wrong name for 3 days. So, who knew? Maybe now I do. We're going to have some more guys moving around. We'll see what Malik Murphy does. I don't know if that's a done deal, Duke to Kentucky, but quarterbacks moving left and right. Auburn finally decided we got to get a QB, and they have Jackson Arnold from Oklahoma.
Say, kids, what time is it?
It's 9 a.m. and this ain't no kiddie show. It's the Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds.
On aboard!
As Mississippi's #1 morning show rolls on the Zone 105.9 and online at thezone1059.com.
Oh, good morning. Welcome in to the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. I'm your host, Bo Bounds. Thanks for hanging out with us on Morning Drive Time. Show is brought to you by Pearl River Resort and the Golden Moon Casino. Inside there is the Timeout Lounge Sportsbook. Bet $50 there. Play award-winning Dancing Rabbit Golf Club for $40. Bet 50, play 40. Crystal Sky is the new sister property that will be open this weekend in Louisville, Mississippi, to go along with Bocoma, which has been open. Bocoma is right outside of Laurel. They'll be opening Crystal Sky in Louisville, Mississippi, 150 slots, sports book, and a super high-end, full-service gas station, convenience store. I was there last Friday, and it's really, really nice. So it's high-end convenience store, 150 slots, sports book in Louisville, Mississippi. It's just right off 25, like 2 minutes, which a lot of you go through there because you're going to Starkville or wherever. And so that'll make 3 properties as of this weekend. You got Pearl River Resort in Philly. You got Bocoma outside of Laurel. And you'll have Crystal Sky starting this weekend in Louisville, Mississippi with 150 slots, a sports book, and a high-end convenience store. We'll be there Friday, I think, from Crystal Sky. And we went over there last week after doing our show from Dancing Rabbit Golf Club. Very, very cool. But want to say good morning, welcome in. Bo Bounds, Jackson Meadows with you. Lots of transfer portal. Man, we've gone hardcore sports. Man, what is going on? Michael Van Buren from Mississippi State to LSU. Jackson Arnold from Oklahoma to Auburn. Blake Shapen will be back at Mississippi State. He is without a doubt the favorite in the clubhouse, so to speak, to be the starter. He's got to stay healthy. That is a lot of risk for Jeff Lebby. The kid is look, if you told me he's going to play 12 games next year, I'd say Blake Shapen's going to have a hell of a year. The problem is he hasn't. And he had some really good moments at Baylor. And, you want to see him do well. I hate that he's got the injury bug. But, now, if you land Luke Kromenhoek from Florida State, you're able to go, okay, hey, we got a guy who's super highly recruited, went to FSU. Tom Luganbill was texting me how much he likes him. The guy's talented, big, has the skill set you're looking for. So if Blake Shapen is knocked out, you'll get more. That wasn't right. If Blake Shapen is hurt, which you hope he's not, you have Luke Kromenhoek, if he goes to Mississippi State, as a very viable backup because he could start at God knows how many schools in Power 4. So we'll see. Also, what is Ole Miss going to do in the transfer portal at QB? They got Austin Simmons coming back. Walker Howard is at Louisiana Lafayette or Louisiana Raging Cajuns. I like Lafayette. It just sounds right to me. But Jackson Meadows, you'd be in that transfer portal looking for another payout.
That's what I mean. You got to be shopping the payday, right?
Got to be shopping the payday.
I mean, what are you doing if you're not?
And I could also see you as an agent.
I would love to be an agent.
Yeah. Side hustling, doing deals under the table.
Completely.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I guess you got to balance those out with the over the table deals now, right?
Well, yeah, they're both legal.
Both legal.
Anything goes. Some schools get that, some don't for whatever reason. You do have to balance that out.
Has it not?
It's almost like I started doing. It's like a co-op. You get some under the table money, cash, and then you get a structured contract with the school where you're getting a monthly payment. That's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, that's moving and shaking.
That's moving and shaking, man.
That's just getting what you're supposed to get.
Right.
At that point, who can blame you?
Well,
they got plenty of money. They got plenty of money. All of them. They choose not to spend it correctly.
QB1 on the Mac Hike Auto Group text line, 601-885-3776. Bo Levy's loyalty to his assistant coaches and to Shapen probably cost us Jackson Arnold. I don't know. I think Jackson Arnold really likes Jeff Levy. Auburn is closer to winning than you are. It's just the cold, hard reality. You didn't embrace NIL or the portal. Your head coach at that time, Mike Leach, didn't. I love Mike. On campus was very slow to adapt and understand and embrace, and then it was god awful timing, obviously on Leach passing away, and your fan base and alums did not warm to it. The whole NIL portal thing too. But on campus was a miss. Off campus was a miss. Auburn's closer to winning. They lost multiple double-digit games this year, and they're closer to winning. And I think Jackson Arnold looked at it and said, I love Jeff Levy. My parents love Jeff Levy. But Auburn's not messing around anymore. They're going to pay whatever it takes. Hugh Freeze is on the hot seat. He's lost back-to-back years because he's messed around at the quarterback position. Last year, they could have signed Cam Ward but didn't want to pay the money. He goes to Miami and has a great year. They bring back Peyton Thorne, and, Peyton's just a nice quarterback. And you need more than that this day and age. You need a Cam Ward. You need a Dart. You need a Milroe. You need a Shedeur Sanders. And I know you don't just drive by and get those guys,
sure,
but you got to have playmakers. You got to have playmakers. And Auburn didn't have a playmaker at the quarterback position. So I don't think Jackson Arnold was going, period. Now, if you were coming off a 7-5 record and you could have gone to Jackson Arnold and said, hey, man, look, we went 7-5 and we believe with you, you can put us in position to do X, Y, and Z. It's a different deal. But you went 2-10 and you beat UMass and Eastern Kentucky. I don't know why I keep going Kent State.
I like that though. But what is your pitch to him from 2-10? What's your
for
next
Levy?
year?
You're like, hey man, we have a relationship. I moved the ball at multiple stops at Central Florida, at Ole Miss, at Oklahoma. Look what I did with Dylan Gabriel. This year didn't go well. Blake Shapen got knocked out in game, 4 or something.
Right.
And with Michael Van Buren, he had some really good moments as a true freshman with everything burning down around him. You know what I want to do, blah, blah, blah. But
it's a professional pitch, though.
Auburn is simple. People are Auburn's closer to winning.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. It didn't matter. Mississippi State was matching the money. Auburn's closer to winning. So there you go. But I think it's a great text from QB1.
Yeah.
Levy's loyalty to his staff. Lane Kiffin makes changes. Nick Saban makes changes. Dan Mullen makes changes. Brian Kelly. Hugh Freeze. He's let go of a bunch of people. We are the Out of Bounds Show. We're brought to you by Independent Roofing Systems, #1 commercial industrial roofing company in Mississippi. Done right the first time. Powered by Independent Roofing Systems, roofing.ms. Show is also presented by the Armory on Lake Harbor in Ridgeland in front of Kroger. For all your firearms, optics, and suppressors, The Armory in Ridgeland. Hey, good morning. Welcome into the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. The big board this morning is brought to you by the Russell's Reserve Barrel Pick at Briarwood Wine and Spirits. There's not much left, but it is fabulous. I think it's the best one we've picked out in the last, 10 years of going up there for barrel picks. But Nate Dogg has a Russell's Reserve Barrel Pick at Briarwood Wine and Spirits. Perfect for the holidays. Please drink responsibly. This is 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. LSU is now in the NIL transfer portal game. Hey, do y'all remember I've talked about this over the years with Mike Krzyzewski? Y'all know I love college hoops. And tonight, you get to see a good basketball team like 10 minutes from your house, 20 minutes from your house, 30 minutes from your house. Mississippi State, Central Michigan tonight, Jackson Coliseum, Josh Hubbard, Cam Matthews. That's awesome. MSU, Central Michigan tonight, tip 6:30, Jackson Coliseum. And Josh Hubbard, hometown. Cam Matthews, also from the state of Mississippi. Two guys that have led you to the NCAA tournament last year, deep into the SEC tournament. Beat Auburn, beat Tennessee twice, and, excited about their season. But tonight, MSU Hoops in Jackson at the Jackson Coliseum, 6:30 tip, MSU Central Michigan, and grab tickets. They're available, and have some fun with the family, or family and friends. That's pretty awesome right there. You know how I mentioned Mike Krzyzewski and how right when the one and done thing happened, he did the pearl clutching thing. He said, I'm not doing it. Well, guess what? Other programs did. And somebody sat Mike down, or either Mike figured it out. And look, coaches are hard-headed, right? We talk about it all the time. Egotistical, paranoid, and hard-headed. Those are the three things they are. Now, if you get the right mix of that, you get a really, really good coach, right? Like a Lane Kiffin, John Cohen, Dan Mullen, Tommy Tuberville, and the list goes on and on. But Krzyzewski said, we're not going to do that. And then he realized, we're not going to get good players. And he changed his tune. LSU, Brian Kelly said, we're not going to do that. And then he realized, we're not going to win at the level that I want to win or LSU wants to win. Last January, February, they hired Austin Thomas, general manager at Ole Miss, to come to LSU. He had been there several years before, even before the transfer portal with Eddie O. But he brought him in to be the GM and run the portal and NIL and understand how important it was. He and Lane had done a great job for 2 years at Ole Miss. Austin Thomas is the GM at LSU. LSU, as you can tell, is going in to the portal. LSU is ranked first, Ole Miss second, Auburn fourth, A&M seventh, Mississippi State 10th, Kentucky 11th or 12th. Teams are in, and there'll be more teams go in, and we'll see how it looks. Let's see. Bo is on the Mac Hike Auto Group text line. You go 2-10 and lose your QB to LSU and run it back, you could be 1-11 next year. Okay. So I think Bo's an Ole Miss fan, and that's okay. He's welcome to weigh in. Look, Mississippi State's got a lot to do to dig out. This isn't all on Levy, but by any stretch, like what's happened, the culmination of what's happened the last several years. Some was out of the Mississippi State administration and fan base control, as y'all know, with what happened 2 years ago last week. And some you totally just sat on your hands, both on campus and off. While other fan bases, including your rival, looked at it and said, oh, this is a new way. We're going to adapt and evolve, and we're going to embrace it. And Lane drove the whole thing, and Keith Carter and Glenn Boyce were on board, and they found those, again, 6 to 8 alums that really spearheaded it and the rest is history. Yeah, they came up short to the college football playoff, but the ROI for Ole Miss being good is tremendous.
Oh, yeah.
As far as what's happening on campus and student recruitment and so on. I mean, it's all SE. Is Starkville growing? Yes. Is your enrollment up? Yes. But Ole Miss winning 20 games in the last 2 years, excitement amount around Lane. There hadn't been any excitement with Mississippi State football since Dan Moorhead. You got excited for a minute and realized he wasn't capable of being the head coach. Okay, Leach, you got excited, but Leach didn't have the quirky stuff was fun and funny and so on, but he was just going to kind of keep you, which you would give your left arm for right now, but hang in there with me as I'm going through this. He was going to keep you at 7, 8, 9 wins, just because he's crazy brilliant, Mike Leach. But Mike didn't want to do the portal. He didn't want to do NIL. He didn't want to staff, and he didn't want to recruit. That's kind of a problem. Yeah. Lane doesn't want to recruit, but what does Lane do? He hires people that get it done for him. And what else does he do? Like Mullen, he makes sure that you have your room in order. What does that mean? Both offensive line coach, wide receivers, linebackers, corners. The demand and the pressure put on those guys to come through is serious. And so that's why it works. Lane can be a little bit off the beating path, but he's got people in place from general manager. His new one is I just mentioned Austin Thomas to LSU. Billy Glasscock. He hired from Texas when Austin Thomas went to LSU. But this isn't all on Lebby by any stretch, but he is the head coach, and there's got to be a sense of urgency and a hair on fire deal. Now, do I think Jeff's working hard? Of course. Do I think he wants to win? Well, hell yeah. Do I think that he and Mark Butler have a tough job? I do. And do I know if you can do much of anything with that schedule? I don't know if you can. I actually think the schedule is more difficult, if that's possible, in 2025 because your winnable games are on the road. And how about your home games? Texas, Tennessee, Georgia, Ole Miss. Texas, Tennessee, Georgia, Ole Miss are your home games. I mean, that's brutal. You know?
That's
on the road.
Multiple L's.
At Missouri.
With a new stud wide receiver, Missouri.
Kevin Coleman. Yeah. That was
That's tough, man.
The Van Buren thing you can get over.
No doubt.
The Kevin Coleman thing was a dagger and then a twist.
Yeah.
You know when somebody drills you in the ribs, and then they come back and get you again? The first one's terrible. The second one's that's what Kevin Coleman leaving Mississippi State to go to Mizzou.
I agree.
Because he is so damn talented. And you build an offense around that guy in college football today. Steve Robertson coming up next. The latest from Luke Cromenhawk, Florida State QB. Is he Starkville bound? Good morning. Welcome in. Your SEC Insider Hit brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. Bundle your auto and home and save with your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. Go local, go with the home team. College football playoffs this Friday and Saturday. You got 4 games. 1 on Friday night, 3 on Saturday, 2 NFL games. And we are off and running. So Clemson at Texas, Indiana at Notre Dame, and SMU at Penn State, and Tennessee at Ohio State. And yes, they're going to expand the college football playoff. It's just a matter of how many teams. You know, are we going to go from 12 to 14 or 12 to 16? And we'll see how it all shakes out. We've talked a lot of transfer portal today. Auburn has their guy. Auburn has their guy in that they have Jackson Arnold. And he goes from Oklahoma to Auburn. And Michael Van Buren leaves Mississippi State to go to LSU, but Garrett Nussmeier's coming back. So we'll see how that looks. Walker Howard is he's leaving. Well, so he went from LSU to Ole Miss, and now Ole Miss to Louisiana Raging Cajuns or La Lafayette. And that's how that. We'll have many more. Malik Murphy's on the trail. He's going to get paid. I don't know if that's Kentucky thing's a done deal, but we'll have to see how that looks. Steve Robertson's going to join us, genespage.com, 247 Sports. He'll join us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. We'll get the latest on Luke Kromenhawk from Florida State. And what's happening there. Steve, am I saying that right? Luke Kromenhawk is the FSU guy?
That's almost perfect, Bo. That's almost. And I had to ask him yesterday. You know, when I talked to him, I was like, man, how do you pronounce your last name? Because I've heard it a lot. I hadn't watched any Florida State games this year that he played in. And you can tell the kid gets it a lot. He's like, hey, so it's Crow, then Men, and then Hawk. And then he says it all together. That's exactly, and I can only begin to imagine how fans are going to butcher that over the next couple of years. But that is correct.
Okay, so Luke Kromenhawk, Florida State QB. And Steve, I want to read what Tom Luganbill sent me earlier. I don't know much about him, okay? He said he's a damn good young player that was put in an impossible position. Said, reminds me of Curtis Rourke when Curtis was its sophomore at Ohio. He went on to say Luke showed a lot of poise and toughness while getting his ass kicked. Is the Luke Kromenhawk to Mississippi State a done deal?
I think it's pretty close, and what I mean by that is I think, you know, and I said this on my show last night. You know, a lot of these young guys aren't used to being interviewed by people that are professional interviewers, right? And so I push a little bit sometimes without being rude, you know, because you want to get a reaction because there's some questions they're already prepared for, you know, and so. You know, you get him talking about the school, and I said, so what about a decision? They talk to you about a decision, and it's like, you know, he's like, well, we're going to take some time, you know, and so I think he knows what he wants to do. It's just a matter of the formalities kind of being worked out. I think it could be announced as early as today. I mean, and then he doesn't have any other visits set up, and you know, so. It's like I said, too, you know, the Jackson Arnold thing. I mean, Jackson Arnold visited Auburn first for a reason. And, of course, with the gift of hindsight, things make a lot more sense to us. You know, Luke Kromenhawk visited Mississippi State first for a reason. These quarterbacks are a little different cat, right? I mean, these guys, you know, they got to make decisions earlier than some other people do. And I think there's some parallels in those situations. And we always talk about that. Watch the visits. You know, when you look at the visits here and who they visit, who they don't visit, and what else they talk about, it makes sense.
So are you at, what, 95% that Luke Kromenhawk is a dog?
I'd say 90%. Yeah, I mean, you never know what's going to happen in the final days of recruiting. But I just think, you know, especially with quarterbacks, you know, it's like, and even with high school level, but certainly in in the portal, it's a business, and it's a bigger business this year than it's ever been before. And we can talk about that whenever you want, but it's crazy what's going on in college football these days with people kind of draining their collectives, and you got rev share coming, and it's just so much out there. It's been a Pandora's box, and we're seeing it now. But I think, the fact that there's just so little time to make a decision now, the dead period opens, after the visits on Sunday. I mean, we go from, contact period to a quiet period, and it's dead from Monday all the way to January the 5th. And so you're not going to have an opportunity to take any visits between now and January 5th. And so if you're a quarterback and you're considering multiple schools, I think you'd want to take those visits before the dead period.
Do you think he's going anywhere in the next few days?
I would be surprised. I really would be. And one of the things that kind of impressed me about the young guy too is he remembers how Jeff Lebby treated him when he was coming out of high school. Like, he ultimately turned Lebby down to go to Florida State, but he remembers how Jeff handled that. And he told me that. He said, hey, when he went down and had the in-home visit, and Lebby just told him he thought he was a big-time guy, thought he fit the scheme. And so whenever everybody started, calling it when he's back in the portal, he remembered that. He remembered how Jeff Lebby made him feel. And so, they've got an opportunity, and I want to go up there and at least go visit Coach Lebby again. And he had a lot of other schools that wanted him to come in, but he chose to visit Mississippi State and Jeff Lebby. And and I agree with Tom's comments too. I had somebody else in the industry that texted me yesterday just saying, hey, I don't know that this young man's getting enough due for what they put him through at Florida State this year. And he was put in an impossible situation, and he handled it with grace. But and people think, well, maybe he'll go back. And you never say never to that, Bo. But I think it's pretty safe to say that he's probably had all the Florida State he wants.
Okay. Steve Robertson on the Out of Bounds Show, Gene's page 247 Sports, and we're talking Luke Kromenhoek. Was at Florida State. Steve believes 90% chance he'll end up in Starkville. He did go on the first visit to Starkville, and as Steve just laid out, he's got a relationship with Jeff Lebby because Lebby recruited him big time out of high school. Okay, so when do you think he'll make the call?
I think it'll be this week.
Do you think he'll make it before Saturday or by Saturday? How do you see that, Steve?
Well, I think if you're Jeff Lebby in Mississippi State, you'd like him to do it, sooner rather than later, because especially there's a couple of wide receivers you're still chasing, and you got some running backs coming to campus this week, and so you want the drawing card, right? I mean, it's like you want the headline making, commitment, and so, I'd hate to say it's going to come today and then it doesn't, and people get all down and depressed, but I think it could come as early as today. But I do think it comes this week. I think the kid is ready to enjoy Christmas. You know what I mean? And he kind of made as much comments yesterday about that. It's like, my family also want to get this thing done sooner rather than later, just so we can kind of enjoy the holidays together and make plans, to relocate and transfer. And, you don't want to have it all hanging over your head during Christmas. And so I do think it comes this week. But as far as, can I pick a day right now? I don't know that I could.
What about his mobility and running? Luke Kromenhoek, possibly Jeff Lebby's with Blake Shapen, potential next starter or whatever. Do you know anything about that as far as his athletic ability, athleticism, dual threat, all that?
Yeah, he's not Nick Fitzgerald, okay, but he's got some of that in his game. He is the guy that you can actually run some design QB run plays for, and I think Mike Van Buren can run some of those things too. Mike's not as big as Luke is, but I don't know how much Jeff Lebby wants to run the quarterback until you absolutely have to run a quarterback just to kind of keep people honest. But yeah, he's capable of doing those things. We've had some quarterbacks in the past that, when they had to go run, it looked a little bit awkward. This guy's a natural athlete. And so I think, as far as the mobility piece goes, he's not a statue back there, but he's also not, run first quarterback. So he's got the true dual threat capability.
Yeah, you haven't had a natural athlete at the quarterback position since Garrett Schrader. I know Shapen is, and what I mean by that, Steve, is play a bunch of games. Blake Shapen is a hell of an athlete, but he got knocked out early, and so he didn't get to put up 8, 10, 12 games. You need a dude. Now, that was interesting what you said. See, I think you've got to run it and run it a lot. Take Fitzgerald out. That's a different deal. He's a leading rushing quarterback in the history of the SEC. But I think you got to run it a pretty good bit. Kind of like Corral Dart at Ole Miss at Mississippi State. You just said you're not sure how much Levy wants to run it. That's a concern to me because when Mississippi State wins, Rocky Felker, John Bond, Don Smith, Sleepy, Dak, Fitz, and what I think Garrett Schrader could have been. When they win, they have a battering ram, a dude who can go get yards with their legs. What are your thoughts on my theory?
Well, I think that's always a possibility. But, Jackson Dart didn't run it as much this year, maybe that he has recently. And I think Matt Corral kind of ran some of that based on the opportunities that were available to him based on matchups. But, I think that's just, you have to have the athletic quarterback that can make plays because you have to account for him in the running game. It doesn't allow defenses to just, have 11 to defend 10. But, I think, ideally what they'd like to do is have him run it just enough to keep people honest. And then, in some situations you use him because, especially around the goal line. But, I think Jeff really wants to grip it and rip it, but not the way Mike Leach did. I think there's some air raid elements in this, and I think there's probably even some zone read elements of the spread in this. But I think at the end of the day, Jeff Lebby just wants to win. And if that requires his quarterback to run it 20 times a game, that's what he'll do, But I think, this is a quarterback that gives you some options where you can have a different game plan.
A mutual friend of ours that's heavily involved with Mississippi State said, find somebody that loves you like Jeff Lebby loves Blake Shapen. We talked about the risk of running all the assistant coaches back. Now, there may be a change over the holidays. There's all this stuff around David Turner, whatever. There needs to be more than that, but yeah, that's not going to placate the fan base, but whatever, something may shake. Your thoughts on running it back with Blake Shapen, who we know is talented, but just has never been able to play more than 6 or 7 games. Didn't even play that many this past year, Steve.
Yeah, that's always the concern because what's interesting too is it's not the same injury, right? If it was a recurrence of the same injury, you'd say, well, this kid's just never going to be able to get right. But it's been a different deal, right? The whole way through. He had the knee injury, then he had the concussion injury, and then now this is a shoulder injury, And when he was healthy, he did some really good things. Saved the Arizona State game, the first half in that ball game, I thought he was what you needed, but, I think your friend's comment is probably accurate. I just kind of got the sense even leading up to the season last year. And I asked Jeff in the spring, I was like, hey, what's this quarterback relationship like? Does he envision offense the way you do? And I'm kind of paraphrasing him, but Jeff was like, yeah, he sees offense and team play exactly the same way that I do. And, you mentioned that about him running it back. I remember getting that text that Saturday after the Florida game, that he was not going to continue. And at that point, it's like, well, that's the season. Any chance that you had of getting remotely close to 6 wins was out the door when Blake Shapen goes down for the year. And you're like, well, Van Buren's got to go on the road and play Texas and Georgia, And I think the young man went and acquitted himself. But I think sometimes people forget that Blake Shapen was the starter this year and that Blake Shapen is capable of leading this program next year. And I think the way the quarterback room is going to potentially play out, that it's going to be a Blake Shapen offense again next year.
Wow. Steve Robertson, genespage.com, 247 Sports. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. How many more guys do you expect them to get in the boat transfer portal wise by Sunday?
So by Sunday, that's an interesting caveat, right? I mean, Levy said on signing day it's going to be about 15. Well, you're at 7 now, but I think you'll probably be double digits by the end of the weekend. You got several visitors coming in. What's today? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So it's going to be a busy second half of this week, and a lot of these guys are maybe starting to feel a little sense of urgency now too. Because we're basically through the middle of December, and these guys got to make plans to move after the holidays to their new location, whether it be Mississippi State or somewhere else. And so I think you're going to see the pace pick up a little bit around the country as guys begin to finalize some decisions. And again, this is the last weekend you can visit before the dead period is lifted in January. So I think State will probably pick up 3 to 4, if not more, between now and the close of business on Sunday. I do think there'll be double digits. And I think you could be higher than – you could be close to a dozen or so based on the guys that are coming in, because you got some other guys coming in too. You've still got a couple JUCO guys coming in taking visits too. You got a linebacker and a running back, and so that State and Ole Miss are both chasing those guys. And so there's a lot of recruiting left to happen over the course of the next, always say 72 hours. I mean, there's going to be a lot of things happen, not just at Mississippi State, but kind of around the conference in these next few days. It's going to shape the rosters.
How concerned or disappointed should Mississippi State fans be with Hutzler and David Turner not pulling defensive line guys or defensive guys to the level that they need yet? Or do you believe they need to be patient?
Well, I think you can do both. I think you can be concerned, and I think you can also be patient. Because again, you don't judge the glass until it's complete. But the reality of it, it's based on what you've seen so far. The defensive end bodies have been there, but the defensive tackles haven't, and that's the thing. People like a guy on MS Sports today, where's the beef? I think that's the question that you have. Is you knew that was a glaring issue for the team, and you've got to address it. And granted, there's not a lot of high caliber defensive tackles in the portal yet, but I think a lot of people would feel better if just more of those guys were coming in to visit, and they'll get some guys, but the fans just don't want a body, right? I mean, want a guy that's going to be a difference maker. And people forget. I mean, I think State was down 5 defensive linemen, 5 D tackles, starting week 2, due to injury or other issues, and so Mississippi State obviously knows that, but that's a glaring need. And so I think you can be concerned, because I'm concerned, but I think it's important to be patient and not panic. It is what it is. I mean, our emotional energy is not going to change it, but I'm sure they'll get some guys, but I would like to see some guys that, after this weekend, you're going to have a lot of guys going to portal too. And the State's got to go overpay for a difference maker on the interior. They need to do that. Okay.
I don't envy Mark Bottler right now. Do you?
Well, I mean, I don't begin to imagine. I mean, when we even had a couple of kids that have referred us to their agents for interviews, and that's new for me, So no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do it. Well, we have the choice, right? If you're Mark Bottler, you're a personnel guy around the country, you got to deal with these guys, and more times than not, you're dealing with the agent more than you're dealing with the player. And so the relationship building aspect of recruiting, at least for this year, has been arrested. That's just not what you're doing. Everybody out there is like, okay, well, hey, we have to have a commitment that it's going to be at least $250,000 before we even agree to take the visit. We ain't going to get on a plane unless this is our asking price, and if you're not prepared to meet that, we're not even going to visit your school. There's no point in us continuing a relationship. That's what we're dealing with right now. And you got some very average players out there that are going to be making tens of thousands of dollars a month.
Yeah, you do. You do.
And so that's what your players that's what your players are dealing with. And let's be honest, these clients, these agents, they're trying to get the best deal for their clients because you've never had rev share. You've never had that to deal with in the past. And so these numbers are skyrocketing. And I think this is going to be a very interesting transition for college football. before they really put some parameters about this. It's interesting that there's a lot of people that know very little and have a lot to say. And right now, there is no cap. That's what people don't seem to understand. There is no cap. Everybody's like, well, the rev share hadn't been voted on yet. So people are basically spending whatever they want to. And there's a lot of schools out there that have a lot more money. And so as a result, they're spending a lot more money to get players. And so we talked about it being the Wild Wild West last year. This is like the Wild West on steroids.
Wild. You're right, though. You're going to have a bunch of average to solid players making a lot of money. I still think the hit rate is somewhere between 30 and 40% in the portal. I think it's right around there, Steve. How would you handicap it?
Oh, I think it'll be less this year.
20 to 30?
Yeah, I think it'll be 20 to 30 this year, just because of the fact that I think you're having to overpay because this is not Mississippi State specific, but I think, when you've got these kids out here, and I guess this is my get off of my lawn speech, but, I remember those days when guys picked schools because they identified with a school. It's like, hey, well, this school exemplifies the values, and I love this coaching staff and the tradition of this program. And, I grew up, watching Bo Jackson play at Auburn, and I've always wanted to wear his number, that sort of stuff. The naivety of youth is gone in college football because nobody out here is picking any school, at least out of the portal. In high school, it's a little bit different. But out of the portal, nobody is picking a school because of a coaching staff.
Right.
They're essentially going to the highest bidder, or at least, picking their favorite among the highest bidders. And again, it's changing.
Right. Right. All right. Yeah, I don't envy Mark Butler for our listeners is basically Lebby's head of personnel, GM, whatever you want to call it. And he and Lebby are in the bunker trying to find enough players. So Steve mentioned 15 players. If the hit rate is 20 to 30%, you can do the math. I mean, that's why I would think they would go 20 players, but I would think you've got to find a minimum of 6 starters, maybe 8, and they're not going to do that at 15. But we'll see. All right, man. Steve Robertson, good luck the next few days. Not going to be a lot of sleep. See you, man.
See ya.
GenesPage.com, 247 Sports. Thanks for listening to the Out of Bounds Show. Lunch today is brought to you by Aplos in the Renaissance and Aplos in Highland Village. And Jackson Meadows likes to call it the Ye rotation. And he has hit it many of times. But they've got wonderful pizzas and all kinds of delicious appetizers. Aplos in the Renaissance, Aplos in Highland Village. And we'll see you tomorrow. Enjoy hoops. Mississippi State, Central Michigan in the Coliseum.